All right, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Fearless Founders. I couldn't be more excited to have our next guest, Ash Amberger, who is the CEO of the House of Moxie Inc., as well as the Middle Finger Project. And we'll get into what that's all about. What is up, sister?
I swear I'm a nice girl.
Okay, so what is the Middle Finger Project?
Let's just put that as a disclaimer. The Middle Finger Project is the place online to be for anyone who wants to explore a freelance career, something on their own path. They're writing a book, they're starting a project, and everyone else in their life is going, you should really be grateful for that job you have, or, really like, is that what you do all day? Those kinds of things. So we're a community of rebels and freelancers online who are working to make great money and good impact.
Love that. Wow, that's a little bit less aggressive than your website description, I believe.
This is only the first 3 minutes.
Okay, we're gonna get into it. You guys, I have been wanting to meet Ash for so long. I fell in love with her years and years ago and have been watching her ridiculous trajectory as a female entrepreneur, as well as the impact that she's created for so many entrepreneurs, and I love it. So, okay, so how did you get started? What's your story?
Yeah, Sarah, I think we all have that crazy ass story that happens where it's like, nobody really plans for success, although I do think you should plan for success. In the beginning, I started off because I was just frustrated. I'm like, I don't understand how people can do this for the next 40 years of their lives. Sit, stare at the same wall, kindly accept the paycheck, that whole thing. And I felt very strongly about it. And this is way before I found the internet or the online community. And I actually just found some diaries the other day that has my actual thoughts written down on them from the early 2000s, being like, oh my God, how do people do this? This
There
can't
has to be
any
more.
way.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, like how do people survive like this? So I started looking for options. I started my first copywriting business in 2006, and I was balls to the wall with it. I had enough experience in marketing and sales, and also coincidentally copywriting, that I thought, if these guys can do it, I can do it and get 100% of the profit.
Right.
So that's what I started doing, and it tanked. Frankly, it tanked. My first business was a disaster. I hated my clients. I hated
Who were your
work I
clients?
was doing.
Who were your clients, and how did you charge for it? What was your business model at the time, or did you just start selling things?
Well, at the time, I had been doing a lot of outside sales, B2B outside sales in the Philadelphia market for big pharmaceutical companies, medical device companies, tech companies in the area. So I had some really great contacts in those arenas, and I thought, well, why not pursue them? So I did. I went ahead and just, I sent out some emails and said, hey, this is what I want to do. And a lot of people were very supportive, and I got some amazing gigs as a result. However, as I was doing the work, I realized that this wasn't what I wanted to be doing over time because it was so draining. It was the kind of stuff that's like, okay, here, learn this 50-page brief on this very technical instrument that we're going to be putting in people's ankles, and then write us some case studies or things like that.
Right.
And I obviously see the value, but that wasn't what I really envisioned for my company. I was a creative person at heart, and that's what I wanted to bring to the table with my copywriting. So
Was this on the side as you were doing your job, or did you just say, screw it, I am quitting everything and I'm going for it?
yeah, I screwed it. I quit everything and I went for it because I was that confident, and I did okay. But at the end of the day, I found myself in a position where I hated it so much that I was procrastinating the work. I didn't want to take on more clients.
Yeah.
I found myself almost hiding in my apartment. Like, I don't know where I am or what I'm doing.
I thought I
And
loved this.
Yeah, and now what? I mean, did I make a mistake? I don't really know. This seems great. I'm so impressed with myself that, wow, I made $1,000 on this gig or that gig. But at the same time, it's really not any better than where I was. So I had a lot of questions, and I ultimately ended up going back to corporate America for a stint doing advertising sales because I wasn't convinced that that was the thing for me. And in fact, it got so bad at one point I had to borrow money to pay my rent because I was so in this state of I can't even stand to think about one more medical device. So
there you go.
Yeah, that's how I got my start.
Well, it's so interesting because I came from the ad agency world too, and I was like, oh, I love marketing. I can market anything until you market industries like I was doing renewable energy or things that I just didn't get me excited, and you kind of lose interest, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I would say that's parallel.
Okay,
sure.
so you went back to corporate America. Were you then like trying to figure out what it is that you truly wanted to create?
Yeah, the thing is I'm really good at sales and I love sales. It's like a sport for me. I love sales. I love marketing.
Sales matter. Marketing matters. I'm joking.
I know you're being super facetious.
From a marketing person.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, there's so many people that have amazing ideas and talents, but they're not into the sales or the marketing aspect. And this is what I really was super obsessed with. I find it amazing that we can all connect to one another, especially with the internet these days. And in the past, you had no options. You had to basically send out flyers to people's mailboxes that they were just going to throw out and chuck in their garbage immediately. Or, you had some kind of a mail order deal. And then the internet came along and everyone was like, whoa, cool. We can see people's catalogs online. But they haven't really caught up to speed to realize that this also means they can become their own business much more easily than they used to be able to. Mm-hmm. So it's amazing the transition there. And I feel like in the beginning, I was just so happy to be doing sales. I really loved it. But at the same time, I found myself back in the same trap. Okay, great. So I'm getting every single contract signed. I'm really good at my job. I'm getting recognized at a national level, and that's really fun. And magazines are cool. But I'm working for $30 commission on every $500 sale I was getting. And so it seemed like, again, the same conundrum. Why am I doing all of this work to make somebody else a lot of money? Mm-hmm. And why am I not doing this for myself? So... Mm-hmm. Same position.
Perfect. So what happened then?
That's exactly when I was like, okay. I remember going into my boss's office and I was like, John, I think you're the best and I love this company. And he knew it was coming. And he's like, nope, don't even say it. You're not leaving. And I was like, John, there's just so much more out there for me. I want to explore. I want to play. I want to use my skills in other ways. I can't be trapped here. And I'm so grateful, but this isn't the end. And that was it. And he was like, no, let's work something out. Let's figure out a way that you can at least go part-time and all sorts of things. And I said, John, I'm just ready to make a go of it. So I had already started blogging on the Middle Finger Project at that time, which was also consolidating a lot of my ideas. And it was kind of like, this isn't right. What can we do? What are other people thinking? Are there other people feeling the same things out here that I am?
Okay, so talk to me about the Middle Finger Project as a brand that you created. I think that it is so brilliant. It's like screw business as usual. And I don't even know if you had that back then, but it was kind of like screw the status quo, live life on your own terms. And I remember when it came about, it was like you got this cult following right off the bat. Things totally took off. Your writing style is unbelievable.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what went into the creation of that? Was it just a way to express yourself, to connect with others, or why did you create it?
I created the Middle Finger Project because I was so sick of the same advice over and over again. And no one actually seemed to understand. I mean, all of my friends that I had been friends with for years were very much on the marriage, baby track or the young professional track. And neither one of those felt like a fit for my life.
Yeah.
And so I started the Middle Finger Project, even though I never give the finger in real life. This feels very passe.
I'll drink to that. No, I'm joking. You guys, we're drinking wine because we're having an evening. Cheers. Okay, so talk to me then. So what was it like when you were, okay, so you'd already done the copywriting thing, and I can totally relate. I would imagine that a lot of the women watching this can 100% relate in having a lot of people in proximity or your circle of friends that aren't doing big things, and what they're doing is equally great, but it's just you want more. And what was that like as you started to step out, I guess, and to, be more visible with this message?
To this day, it's been years and years, and to this day, I still have just a girlfriend that visited the other day, and she's still like, oh, so this job opportunity came along. She doesn't realize the success that we reached, and she doesn't actually ask either. So it's very strange because I feel like there's a very big disconnect between people that have this certain innate motivation for something else, who are inspired to create, who want to make something in this world, versus people that just don't. They have other goals. And there's always this divide. So it's been strange as I navigate this over the years between my real life friends and people that I feel get me more, who are now online colleagues and even clients. So the Middle Finger Project, it really evolved as a way. I put myself out there, and I didn't even realize in the beginning that people were going to be reading what I was writing. Honestly, and that gave me the permission to write whatever I felt, which was amazing. I wasn't censoring myself, monitoring myself. I was just like, fuck this. This is not okay. And I think that's why it actually caught on.
Right. Because a lot of people that were feeling like they had to hide who they are and what they wanted were like, okay, finally somebody is speaking to me about that. And so you started to attract a lot of people, and what was that like in building a community to support you and be like, oh man, I'm not alone in what my desires are? And did you start to move a little bit away from those friends, or did you keep them, and then what was that transition like, I guess?
I think that I still, over time, one of my biggest goals was, hey, I don't want to be stuck in an office because there's so much more that life has to offer. There's so many things in this world that I would be a fool to sit in one little corner of it and sit here and stare at the wall looking at. It just doesn't feel right. I need to build a business around my life and not really my life around a business. So with that in mind, I've traveled a lot, and I've had the great fortune to meet friends and people all over the world. And I think that over time, those people have actually become more connected to me in many different, more meaningful ways than people that I was just friends with by default because they were in the same 15-mile radius.
Yeah.
So that's also true. Of course you keep some of your friendships, but I think that it's important to stay flexible in your mindset anyway. It's difficult, and I've had a lot of guilt over that over the years.
Yeah.
But you're growing, and you're growing as a person and as a professional, and you need people to support you. And sometimes the people that are going to be there to support you are not the ones that you expect.
So were you motivated mostly by lifestyle, or because you just loved what your passion of this business, or what was it that drove you or motivated you to make that shift? And then I want to get into what that business was and how that evolved into House of Moxie and all these products and your massive profitability.
Yeah, I think the why was probably the driving factor.
Yeah. Which was hacking life in a way.
I recognize that the internet is this tool, and it doesn't seem prudent anymore to sit and only limit yourself to having customers in your town or in your area, or be able to talk to those people. The internet has afforded us way more than just being able to scroll through Facebook. It's afforded us an opportunity that most people are not taking advantage of yet. So in the beginning, it started as something that was lifestyle driven, but with intention. I thought to myself, okay, well, what do I actually help people with? What am I actually motivated by? What can I bring to the table? What will people pay me for to do? Because this is really something that is important to me, but should also be important to them. So, it's a mix and match game, and it takes time. It's not something that's like, oh yeah, this match made in heaven. It takes time. It takes tweaking. We've gone through so many iterations of TMF Project, of House of Moxie, of everything that we've done over the years to be able to help people in a way that makes sense given the current year or what people are going through. And it's always a work in progress. There's never any done, ever.
That is so amazing. You actually listed off, I saw this chart once that was like, it's the intersection of what you're good at, what the world needs, what the world will pay you for, and what you love doing. And if that intersection is bliss, that's your zone of genius. And that's where you're wildly successful, profitable, and blissfully happy. And I love that you touched on that. But it's an evolution, right? And so,
absolutely.
So at this point, were you still in Philadelphia? I know you moved to Latin America at some point. So talk to me about the evolution of your business. So you had the Middle Finger Project. Were you doing freelance copywriting on the side? And then where did you go from there?
Yeah, here's where it gets really ugly, but very useful. I had, as I mentioned, put my company aside and gone back to advertising sales, at which point I quit my job and decided that I was going to start freelancing again, but work my way into more intention with my clients and the types of jobs that I was taking on. I love copywriting. I've always loved writing. I have ridiculous diary entries of myself writing letters of the alphabet before I even knew what the letters of the alphabet were. So just trying to imitate the squiggles that I saw. And I've always loved that. And then when I discovered marketing and sales, and again, how much of a really amazing sport that can be when you look at it from the perspective of, I have something amazing that I want to offer the world, and there are people that are dying for that to be out there, but it's a matter of finding a way to bridge the gap. When you look at it from that perspective, sales and marketing is just an amazing sport. So when I looked at both of those, I thought, geez, the marriage of these is copywriting, and that's how I got started. So when I was deliberately trying to think about the types of clients I wanted to take on, I was slowly moving forward. I did some work for AWeber. At that point in time, I was their director of PR. And I was taking on clients behind the scenes, kind of just dabbling here and there. But my dabbling ended up costing me a lot of money, because you don't realize how much money it costs to live every month, right? You've got rent, you've got cars, car insurance. Life in the United States is very expensive. And I always had this chip on my shoulder, like I was just going to figure it out. Yeah. It didn't matter. I'll just figure it out. And came the time when I wasn't figuring it out. And I had a couple of stupid financial moves that I made.
So what do you do?
And in that moment, I had a moment of despair. I mean, I've written about this online, but I was very much literally in my car in the damn Kmart. I've never gone to a Kmart in my life, except now I should probably send them a donation or something. I was in the Kmart with, a few dollars to my name and no more credit and shit, nowhere else to go. I mean, I was in Philadelphia, in South Philly, and just being like, oh shit. So I sold my car literally within 48 hours, and I hopped a plane to South America, where I had been before when I was, still doing my graduate work, and I was there on a UN scholarship and different things like that. I had friends, I had contacts, and I knew how cheap the cost of living was, and there was something that compelled me there to start over and go there and concentrate on what I really wanted.
Was it a gut instinct that you had just to screw it and go?
Yeah, I mean, there were a number of factors that contributed to that. Unhealthy choices that I knew I couldn't be making in Philadelphia, that I knew were going to impede my ability to succeed. I'm not talking about drugs or anything, but, relationships and men and things that are distractions that shouldn't have been there, and things that I didn't want in my life. And I knew that in order for me to be strong enough to make this work, I needed to be outside of that context. So I left. Okay. And that's when I started really focusing on building the new version of my company, House of Moxie, and using the Middle Finger Project as a marketing tool because I had already had collected such a big audience of people that were already on board. They were already, yes, this is what
I believe
we
in the
want
vision,
to.
believe in your why.
Yeah.
Yep.
We're trying to do the same thing. We don't know how to get there as well as you, though, because we've never gotten a client before. We've never negotiated terms. We've never, had to tell somebody that we want to fire them. Like different things like that I had already had experience with in the corporate world. So I thought, this feels right. This is good. And I started working both angles.
Do you think that, like, okay, so when you moved to Latin America, I forget, did you go to Costa Rica? Is that where you went? Or Chile?
No, this time I went to Chile.
Okay, that's right. Yep. Okay. So, but as you kind of aligned your life, like it was easier for you to align your business to who you were and like what you wanted to create?
Yeah, people that don't have anything to lose don't have anything to lose.
Oh, I have been there. I have so been there.
I love that position in so many ways because it seems so defeating, but there's so many advantages. Like you really don't want to piss off somebody who doesn't have anything to lose.
Right, right. There's no fear because it's like it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and it was great. It was a great advantage for me because so many other people, in the online space or in the entrepreneurial space and small business space, whatever, were still putting on their professional face. They were still really cautious about what they were saying, and they were still operating like they were working for a big corporation, which anyone would do. And, it's human nature. But at the same time, I had nothing to lose, and I had really strong opinions on some things. And I felt okay with voicing those things.
Well, and one of the things I respect so much about you, not to interrupt you, but is that like you've always been so vulnerable about where you're at, what you've gone through, like the entire journey and process, which, I had this fear. I was the same way, right? When we started our blogs back in the day, I had this fear of vulnerability. Like I couldn't share anything. And I was working at a corporate job, but it's like, I just admire that so much about you, and I think that's part of why you've been so successful. So House of Moxie, you're like, okay, I need another sexy entity to do. You want to do bigger things. So you could have done freelance copywriting forever, just you on your own. Was it because you wanted to like expand and scale, or what was the reasoning behind that? And let's get into what House of Moxie is.
Yeah, I think House of Moxie is the creative agency I built for copywriting, and mostly because we lost a really key deal for sponsorship with Dunkin' Donuts a few years back because of the name, the Middle Finger Project. So it made me actually realize, okay, I need to form a company that's not the Middle Finger Project. And that's how that started. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's about taking myself as seriously as I want the world to take me. And sometimes that's hard when you have such an irreverent brand name like TMF Project. And I think the community there is great. But if I really want to be featured in Forbes or the Huffington Post, sometimes you need to also talk the talk and walk the walk. So we formed House of Moxie for that reason. The reason why I've grown since, we've added on staff members and different people, is because I understand how businesses run, and businesses can't run just with one person. It's just impossible from a logistics standpoint, from a sanity standpoint.
Yeah, I hear you on that. Okay, so you created House of Moxie. You're doing like badass copywriting for clients, and then I know you transitioned into was it Brandgasm, or a lot of like digital products that you created because you saw the market need for those, and like how do you scale what it is that you offer and what's going on in your head, right? So talk to me about what that process was like and what you created.
Yeah, I mean, I love working with people, but I also realize the limitations. There's huge limitations involved in working one-on-one with everybody in the whole wide world. And gosh,
well, and you can only make as much money as the hours you have in the day.
Yeah, and I'm very fortunate to say there are many people that have reached out to me and want to work together, and that's so cool. But I reached a point where I couldn't accommodate that, and nor could anyone if they're doing a good enough job with their marketing. So you have two choices. You can really just start turning clients away, or you can start charging more money. But at the same time, there's eventually going to be a ceiling on the amount of money that you can charge as well. And it might not feel like the best internal decision either. So the question becomes, how do I grow without spreading myself too thin? And this is something that everyone deals with.
Yeah, that's so essential. So you created sort of digital courses that provided expertise or training in particular areas such as branding and copywriting for Brandgasm, right? And then Small Business Bodyguard was all kind of about legal or whatnot. And what's interesting about you is I feel like not only is that audience, it's you, right? So you kind of understood the pain point, but you probably had your finger on the pulse in terms of what they were asking for. So you actually knew before you created something that it was actually legitimately solving a problem, right?
Yeah, I mean, I did have that very big advantage of having the audience and hearing their discussions over and over again. But I think that's really important too, is to listen to what people are talking about. I mean, sometimes I see these random products or things that go up on the market that are just so far-fetched, and I think, that's a nice to have idea, but it's not something that I am jumping to pay for, and it's not something that I even feel is relevant or time sensitive or pressing or whatever the case may be. So I've had that advantage, and I think listening to people talk is probably the best market research you can ever do. Just listen.
Right, totally. And I feel like if it's not in the top 3 pain points, it's really difficult to get people to purchase anything. It doesn't matter how cheap or expensive it is, right? So I love that. Okay, so from what I understand, those are wildly successful, and you're still running your other business, right? So can you give us a number on how profitable you've been, like at all, or no, you don't have to?
Yeah. I mean, we started off, I had mentioned prior, but in 1997, geez, I'm dating myself. In 2011, I set out to prove that anybody who was running a service-based business could at least make $100,000, even given their limitations. So I started a public experiment called 97 in 11, which was, it rhymed. It was close to 100,000.
Cute.
And we were successful. We closed out the experiment at 103,000, and I had people following me every single week for 52 weeks of the year. Everything that I did, my thought processes, what was going on. And so that year, 2011, was 103,000, and I did that on purpose, deliberately, for the purpose of that experiment. So from there, we've grown rapidly, and we did almost $500,000 last year, and this year we're on track to make a full million, which is awesome, because I'm like, I grew up making less than $10,000 a year. That was our family income. I had a mother on Social Security disability. Like, I can't even believe this.
That is unbelievable. I want to commend you for that. But like, you've been taking risks, right? And it's because you've broken the rules. And it's not like there was a blueprint that you Googled that was like, okay, here's how I build my business, right?
Never. And I think that so much of it has to do with just identifying the things you hate about whatever your industry is and going for it, standing for something, standing up and saying, I hate this. This is what me and my company stand for. If you're with us, let's go. This is how we are, and we want to attract other people that way. And there's so many people that are really still riding the fence, and, even making decisions. I see a lot where it's like, well, I'm not going to invest in the time to think about a name, for example, or my website, because I really just want to test it out first and see if it sticks. And then if it sticks, then I'll consider those things. But what they don't realize is that it's the opposite. The reason why it might not be sticking is because you haven't put that initial effort into it. And you have to just believe the shit out of it. Like, let's do this. You have to be 100% into it. If you're not, just stop right now. Like, get in 100% into it. See what happens. Let yourself be vulnerable.
Well, and I think that when you talked about the why, and we have to wrap up here, but like, do you think that if you're grounded in that why and you truly believe it's possible, that like when obstacles come or challenges or anything, that it's so much easier to keep persevering and going for it versus I'm like lobbing this up to you, really, is what I'm doing.
Yeah, no, yeah, I mean, absolutely. Absolutely. There's been so many times when I'm like, God.
Like, are you talking about it? But like, seriously, because if you don't give a shit, that was like my last business. And I was like, you know, I could go after that client, but I don't really care.
Oh,
you know?
yeah,
or like, you're just like, screw it. I'm just going to give up. Like, I'm going to take a sabbatical, watch Netflix, and, you know, sabbatical. Like, I don't even go travel. I just watch Friday Night Lights on Netflix. But, you know what I mean, though? But, like, even with Hello Fearless, when things happened, I was like, screw that. I want to make this happen, you know? And what are your thoughts on that?
I really think you just have to have the why. I mean, the rest will fall into place. It will, and it's never going to be the first iteration. You're going to have to go tweaking and changing and playing and maybe completely pivoting in a different direction. And that's fine. This is all the fun of the game. It's a game. That's all this is. It's a game to see how well you can take your talents and your strengths and actually bring them to market. It's an amazing game because it validates you and everything that you're doing. You get paid great money. You can connect with people. You have a great time. It's not just sitting there fucking faxing a paper, for Christ's sake. The point.
I saw a quote today, actually, that was like, life is a beautiful experiment. And treating any idea or thing that you have, like from a curiosity standpoint, to see if it works, and testing and figuring that out. And I thought that was, instead of like, oh my God, my life is over if it doesn't work out, and that's why you reiterate. And I think that I love what you're talking about.
Yeah, you can always go back to whatever you were doing before. It doesn't matter. The world doesn't care as much as you think about you. So just put yourself out there. See what happens. If you suck, who cares? Nobody even noticed. I guarantee it.
Oh my gosh. Okay, you are pretty much my idol. I love you and adore you, and I know everyone else is going to feel the same way. Thank you so much for being on here. Where can everyone find more about you? And I know we didn't get to talk about Life Hooky, which is another thing that you've created, but where can everyone find out more about you and what you do?
If you forget the Middle Finger Project by now, I mean, you're doomed. Let's go to the...
Weren't you .org for a while, by the way?
It is still .org. It is still .org.
It's a nonprofit. It's a movement.
It is still. We have tmfproject.com if that makes you happy.
Ooh, you finally like mustered up the money to buy the premium domain.
Oh, yeah. There's some like domain in 2009 when I was starting this that was like $15,000. I was like, I'll pass.
I'm just giving you shit. It's amazing. Okay, so the Middle Finger Project, and what's your Twitter account?
TMF Project. You can't miss me. You Google any of those things, even if just finger project. I think you'll find me.
You've optimized for all the right words.
It's just,
so people can search well. You're amazing. I love and adore you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, this has been great, you guys. Be sure to connect with Ash. I'm sure we will collaborate and do a lot of things together in the future. So,
woo! Hello, Fearless.
Whoop, whoop. Say hello to Fearless. Okay, we will talk to you soon. All right, bye.